Nebraska Preps postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
And we welcome you in. It's Nebraska Preps postgame. That's what the big voice guy just said. I'm Damon Benning. This is Jacob Padilla, one of the best in the business, running the gamut of games across the board. We'll touch on as many classes as we can, but Class A, we get the playoffs started, and in Class B, it's the earth is starting to settle, right? Is that the ground is starting to settle a little bit in terms of what's going to happen with the seedings?
Well, I think in Class B, pretty much just followed what's happened all year. We had some teams hold on, and then some others beat the other top teams. Some big wins for a couple of those other teams in that kind of top 6 or 7 there. So B, I think, continues to be hard to figure out.
Yeah, right.
All season.
Hastings gets the 30-19 win over Grand Island Northwest. That was one of the key games that we were paying attention to that we talked about ending last week. And then the one from last night, right? Elkhorn and Skutt. Elkhorn hangs on to win that game, back and forth. A lot of questionable things happening late in that game.
Yeah. A lot happened on that last drive there.
Right. You know, and I went back and forth, right? At first I was like, wow, the resolve, kind of the staying power of Elkhorn, and then Skutt battles back to put themselves in position. I wasn't in love with the last series, but I mean, without Sam Scott, it was a little bit of a game changer.
That's kind of the big caveat there is that was an incredible play by Isaac Robinson and those other Antlers that got in there to make that tackle at the goal line on the last play. But let's be honest, that's Sam Scott. That's probably not happening. He's probably getting in there.
I thought at first we may see some sort of fullback dive or maybe the veer game, maybe to see Liebentritt handle the football. You always want the ball in the hands of your best players and in situations like that. And when Sam Scott's got kind of the calf strain, ankle deal, we'll see how he heals. A couple of huge potential situations from an injury standpoint could really shake things up in Class B.
And obviously with Skutt, we haven't seen them play a full game at full strength all year long.
All year.
And again, it cost them in that game. I think if Sam Scott is able to play at 4 quarters in that game, that's going to be much tougher for Elkhorn to come out of there with a win. But props to Elkhorn, though. They needed that win. They did. They were one of those teams that we've always held them up there. They've had the talent. They didn't quite have as many of those wins over the other teams as the others did. And now you go get that win over Skutt. Now they're firmly right in that mix with everybody else.
I think they feel a lot better about themselves. It was almost like Elkhorn kind of struck me as one of those teams that was just waiting to get to this spot, right? Because there's 2 teams. There's one in Class A, and there's one in Class B. I feel like I know exactly what I'm getting. Elkhorn, I feel like I know exactly what I'm getting. The other team in Class A, Millard South. They play the same just about every week. Now, we may see a few wrinkles. Next week we'll see. Stanger starting to get some snaps at quarterback. Maybe that changes the way that they play a little bit, but I feel like I know what I'm getting from those 2 football teams. And Elkhorn, you're right, needed that one last night, if nothing else from a confidence builder. Coming off the shaky performance against Bennington. And, now things maybe have changed for Bennington.
Yeah, that's sad one to hear. They got the win tonight, but it sounds like Tyler LeClaire went down, got injured during the game, and he's a guy I feel terrible for. He's had injuries.
Mr. Do Everything has kind of battled through a litany, right?
Yeah.
Of this one, we won't speculate, didn't appear to be a good one.
Yeah, just got to keep fingers crossed that looked worse than it was and that he'll be able to return because he's a guy that has had a great season. Yeah. He is a really good player, both sides of the ball, big hitter, powerful runner. He's at the center of everything they do. Obviously they like to sling the ball around. They got a good quarterback, good receivers, but it all starts with LeClaire running up the middle, and then you kind of play off of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because for them all year, it started out in fall camp with a couple key injuries. They had a big one in the middle of the season. It has always been next man up for them. But I think this one with LeClaire is a little bit different.
And that's tough, too. You hate seeing, especially at this point, because you look at all these teams. Bennington had a case, at least offensively, they're probably as complete as anybody in the class with that ability to both run and beat teams through the air with that combination of Cale Bird back there at quarterback and then LeClaire at running back. So there are a lot of teams in Class B where you've got ones that are they're going to air the ball out. You got teams that are going to keep it on the ground. Bennington's one that could beat you either way. And I think that would have served them well heading into the postseason at full strength.
Yeah, you and I both watching tonight, Waverly and Norris, a pretty good message that Waverly sent saying, hey, we're over here. Don't forget about us. We may lull you to sleep with our offensive style, but that offensive line was fantastic tonight. And Norris just couldn't get it going.
And that's kind of the other one. You look at that win for Elkhorn. It's the same thing for Waverly because we kind of had that top 5 or 6, and then Waverly was just sitting there like, are you up here or are you kind of down here? Which way are you guys going to go? Because their big win was over Skutt early in the season. Skutt was way shorthanded compared to what they are even now. I
think that was 13-3 final, something like that.
Yeah. So real low scoring. Skutt wasn't close to what it looks to be now without Sam Scott and without some of their linemen and everything they had missing at that point. So now they're able to. They had a strong season, but now you kind of reinforce like, oh, no, actually, we do belong in this discussion with this win over Norris, and it was just a complete domination from start to finish.
Yeah, I thought the goal line stand obviously was huge at the half, but Waverly had established control of the line of scrimmage. It was I felt like they had firm control of that football game.
Yeah, and Cooper Hausman was running for his life from the first snap, and he's a guy that is really good at kind of improvising. And
he got him in position with the improv to get him down to be stopped right before the half, right? I mean, he made a play, extended that drive.
So he was doing everything he could to with the pressure he was facing, but it ended up just being too much. He wasn't able to make some throws that he needed to. He didn't have a great game, but again, when you have pressure in your face every single snap, it's hard to stand in there and make those throws and put the ball where it needs to be, even if you've got receivers like he does. And props to C.J. Hood, maybe the play of the game, one-handed catch, 40 yards down the field.
He's a fantastic player.
Husker baseball commit and also starter, good player on their basketball team. So kid's a heck of an athlete. He played well, but Norris just wasn't able to get anything going consistently. They had a few splash plays, but right after that, we'd see a sack or pressure in the face, incomplete pass, or stuff a run. They weren't able to stack successful plays on top of each other all night long.
Trying to really get the points leaders in Class B, they keep it pretty current. It's hard to believe that you could see a team like Aurora, a 7 or 8, maybe even a 9 seed, depending on what the latest movement will be. But I tell you, we've talked about it since we've been doing these podcasts together. Class B will be like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, it's been crazy. You look, it's basically been the same top 10 all year long.
In some order, right?
Every week it's different order because somebody's beat somebody else. So you jump up, somebody drops down, then that team bounces back the next week and moves back up. Like, it's been crazy, but it's pretty. I think we know who the real kind of challengers are, the real contenders here. The problem is you just have no clue which one of those is really belongs at the top.
Right. McCook would be a live 10 seed, right? Yeah. I mean, they're right there, just ahead of Plattsmouth. And Scott's sitting at, right now, an 8. That's
a dangerous 8.
That is a very dangerous 8 seed. But with the 3 losses, they've earned not one of those again to Class A Gretna. Nothing to hang your head about, especially what they went into with up front in that game. But Class B is, for lack of a better term, a crapshoot.
Yeah, so just looking record-wise, we got Norris at 7-2, Waverly at 7-2, Elkhorn at 7-2. You got Waverly or Skutt at 6-3, Plattsmouth 6-2, Aurora 6-3. Like, everybody's kind of right around that same area. There's nobody made it through with even just one loss. But so I think the Class B playoffs are going to be as interesting as we've seen. I think they're going to be as competitive once you get into those last few rounds here.
Yes, seeding will definitely matter. Now, when we jump over to Class A, we had the early one. Again, both you and I watched Millard North handily over Norfolk. And I thought that the theme of today was seeds held, right? Outside of Southwest.
The 17 over 16 was the only upset in the first round,
which in essence is really a crapshoot, right? I mean that's a tough. I mean, you're seeding 9 through 24 for the bottom tier of those 15, right? 16, 17, almost starting right in the middle.
Yeah, and there weren't a lot of close games in there either. just a couple of single-digit games in that mix. So,
and they were one of the few with the 27-21 win over North Star.
Yeah, good win for Southwest. Now you get to play Bellevue West next round.
Now, you know the interesting thing, I've kind of said this, Millard North has my attention, right? I like the Quantins brothers. Yeah. It's a good tandem. I felt like they've played better than average defense, right? The schedule was tough. The offense kind of feeling its way along. I don't know if I'd call them dangerous, but they're interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly no easy out. And Jimmy Quainance is really kind of settled in his own, running that option offense. He
hit his brother today for a nice touchdown.
He made some really nice throws. Yeah. And I think that one was the one into the wind, too, and the wind was ripping out there. So to be able to step in and make that throw, he had one or two other kind of deep passes, had some big runs. He looked really smooth back there running that offense, and they got a few different runners involved. And I think the one thing, they were a little sloppy there, got away, and they had a lot of penalties, some false starts, some
kind of been their MO.
Stuff. So
have been a little loosey-goosey with the discipline in some of these tighter games that they played.
And that's going to cost you when you move on to the next round when you're playing a much better team than Norfolk.
Yeah, and as you said, the seeds held, right? Grand Island with the 36-0 win over Pius. Columbus 31-14 over Papio. Papio is one of those interesting teams, right? They kind of went out with a whimper. They had a lot of guys missing a week ago, kind of piecemealing it together this week. I felt like that team may be a little bit better than their record indicated. Just really couldn't gather any momentum.
Yeah, and they've got some pretty talented individual players. It just seems like the whole I think they're replacing some big pieces from last year on the offensive line. Never really quite got that straightened out. And if you're not strong in the trenches, it's going to be tough. You're going to have a hard time getting the ball to your receivers on the outside. And Tyson Money had a ridiculous catch in that game. That he was
another quality player that I think is kind of flying under the state's radar.
And then Luke Lindenmeyer rocking number 99 out there at tight end. So they've got some offensive weapons, but I think they need to kind of heading into next year, they're going to have to figure some things out and get a little bit stronger on the up front in the trenches.
Yeah, the ground and pound of North Platte kind of wearing down. Lincoln High 33-14, kind of business. Like North Platte isn't real flashy, not flashy at all. They're going to try to run it down your throat, but quietly get to their 6th win.
Yeah, and now speaking of flashy and the exact opposite of what North Platte wants to do, you get Lincoln East in the next round, so that'll be kind of an interesting clash of styles there, but. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah, the air raid and spread attack against the ground and pound.
Yeah, so no real surprises so far. We'll see if that trend continues. I think this next round will give us should give us some more interesting matchups and ones that I think will be a little bit tougher to call. There are a few ones in particular I think that are going to be really fun.
When you're looking at a live dog, who falls into that category for you? I know you're maybe eyeing a Millard West team. Not necessarily impressive tonight, but very business-like, but 47 points. Defense set them up with a few scores, but 47 points for that offense against the Bell East bunch. That has to be somewhat encouraging.
Well, yeah, especially with all the struggles they've had with the injuries and everything, working in new quarterbacks, trying to figure that out. It's good for them to be able to get some success there offensively because it's been a rough season. So and now they've earned a rematch with Millard South, and
no love lost.
Yeah, they were at full strength the last time they played, and it was competitive. But
yeah, one
Millard
score
South
game at the half.
Yeah,
and Millard South extends offensively, gets a couple big plays in that one against Millard West. That was one I happened to be in attendance personally,
Same.
And again. When you're that well coached, you're going to give yourself a chance to be competitive, but it will be what it has been all year. Can you find a way to make enough plays offensively to not only give your defense a break, but to get something easy? Give yourself a chance to win offensively. We didn't get a chance. We were jumping around all over the place. You go back to B real quick. With Bennington winning that game, we got kind of stuck on LeClaire and what's maybe potentially going on with that injury. But managed to send 35-21 over a very live and game Gross team who had that 28-21. They cut it to 7 in that third quarter, and you're thinking, well, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's starting to feel some pressure, especially your guys go down. Mentally, that's going to be tough on you anytime you see one of your best players, one of your teammates go down. To be able to withstand that pressure and go answer and kind of put that dagger in there. That's impressive by them.
It's interesting. And the game hasn't gone final yet. It was 41-7, Fremont over Papio South in the third quarter. That Papio South team is a little bit of a surprise to me. I know they were trying to rebuild up front, right? Offensive and defensive lines struggled all year, but I thought that skill maybe was going to be good enough to have them more competitive maybe than I think what we saw this year.
Yeah, well, it looks like Fremont tacked on another one, 48-7, heading into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So running clock, that one should be over shortly. But
I really like Fremont, especially at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, and that'll be an interesting game next week against Elkhorn South. Like you said, kind of a live underdog there, coming off good confidence builder, good win here. They've had a good season. They're not going to go in there thinking like, hey, this isn't something that we can pull off here. So I think that one, and then the game I'm really looking forward to seeing is that 8-9. So it should be close, but that Kearney Gretna game, and we'll see kind of what shape Gretna is getting this week off. Now, obviously, they canceled their Week 8 game down in Southeast. So we'll see. Hopefully, everything's good there, and they're able to kind of send their full team out there and play a good game. But I was really impressed watching Kearney against Elkhorn South.
And here's the thing, so let's go back to the Elkhorn South game here real quick with Fremont, because what that I think is going to boil down to, you have very limited possessions against Elkhorn South. I've seen them. You've seen them. Very good up front, both on the offensive and defensive lines. They limit your possessions. They've got really the three-headed monster running the football with Krause, Ballard, and Ben Warren. And they keep the ball from you, and they don't beat themselves. Fremont's going to have to be very, very efficient with their offensive possessions, because I don't think they're built like that in the trenches.
That's true, and that's going to be a key throughout these playoffs. So you've got some of these better teams. That's what they do. They're very strong up front, and you're going to have to find a way to hold your own, like we saw in B tonight in that Norris-Waverly game.
Yeah.
That decided the game. I think Norris is more explosive offensive. They have more offensive weapons than Waverly does, but Waverly controlled the line of scrimmage, and that allowed them to kind of let their style of gameplay win out and wasn't able to allow Norris to really hit them with those big plays.
Stay with that for a second, because I think I asked you when you walked in, did you get the sense that Waverly was that good up front on the offensive line, or do you think if I'm watching this game and I'm thinking, now, are they really this good up front? I know what they're committed to doing as an offensive unit, right? That's what they do. They will run the ball and cram it down your throat. But tonight, I was a little taken aback at what control they took of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, a little disappointed not on Norris' side. I thought they were going to be better than they were. And the surprising part is the fact that nothing really changed or weren't any adjustments. It just continued throughout, right to the very end. I think the last couple of plays that Norris had, even sacks, guys flying in his face, just having to throw the ball away. It continued to the very end.
Hasman's a good athlete.
Yeah, and Hasman, I think he might have tweaked something there. It looked like he went down awkwardly. They ended up finishing the game with their backup quarterback. Didn't get any word on what the situation was there. It looked like he was standing on the sideline. So I don't know what exactly the case was there, but it didn't really matter who was back there at quarterback. They had a guy in his face 1 second after he got the ball and didn't really have much of a chance. So you'd think, whether it's moving more guys in line, help protect, whether it's changing the scheme, whatever you got to do something to give yourself a chance. And it just continued all night long. It just didn't seem, if they did try adjustments, they just didn't work.
Yeah, while we're playing this game of ping pong, it's back in your court. Let's go back to Kearney and Gretna next week, right? If any team could have used a bye, as you kind of just alluded to, it was Gretna, literally trying to get healthy. Kearney's played the who's who, right? You look at their schedule, they know how to grind. They've seen the best two teams in the state in Bellevue West and Westside. Well-coached bunch. That's a tricky one to kind of cap.
And I like their quarterback, Preston Pearson, played well getting that
some moxie, doesn't
game.
he?
Yeah, Jack Johnson, running back, linebacker, kind of a two-way impact player for them. They've got some pieces. They're going to be tough, and that's no matter what sport. That's kind of the culture out there. They're gonna give you a battle. anytime you line up against them, and I think that'll be the case as well. So it'll be
Coach Baranek and Coach Cool probably exchanging ideas in the hallway. Hey, my team's tougher than my team's tougher than yours. Hey, we shoot the 3. Hey, we don't give up 3. Yeah, I can see them going back and forth.
But yeah, so and Gretna coming off now. This is a 2-3 weeks now since that game at Elkhorn South where they got handled. Yeah. So they've been thinking about that for a while. So you have to think they're coming in here like, all right, we've got something to prove here. We know this is going to be a tough team, but we got to show like, hey, this season wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a matter of our schedule. We are actually this good.
What do you think happens in that prep game potentially with kind of how they're sitting, a team that is on a little bit of a natural high?
Yeah, that's for sure. And that'll be another one interesting one there because of the way Millard North is playing now and the way that prep's just been so kind of volatile. They've shot themselves in the foot getting off to such slow starts in games. Sometimes they're able to come back. Sometimes they haven't. Once you get to this point, you cannot give your opponents anything. You've got to come out, play well. You got to be disciplined, be smart, be efficient from the start. Because if you dig yourself a hole in the postseason, like those heroics, you're probably not going to get those to work out for you this late in the season. So that's I think the game. It's going to be important in that one for prep to get off to a good start. You can't allow Millard North to kind of do what they want to, set the tone, control the possessions throughout the game. You got to have to put a little bit of pressure on them, maybe get off to a 1-2 touchdown lead there and really give them something to think about. And so that's going to be on prep, and especially quarterback Sam Eisenberg there. He's got to come out sharp from the start.
Yeah, this one isn't as sexy by name, but a team that I think earned my respect watching them against Bellevue West. Columbus and Southeast could be very interesting.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that Papio stream.
A very vanilla bean from Lincoln Southeast offensively, right? You're kind of watching them sometimes. A little bit how I feel about Elkhorn. You want them to take a few more chances, open it up. You've got good weapons on the outside. Yeah. You've got good weapons on the outside. Take some chances, but they play close to the vest. They play very good defense. They're a team that survived replacing all 5 offensive linemen from a year ago to run the table in the regular season the following year. That is it's tough to do, especially in Class A.
And they've got some dynamic players. Jake Applegate is as good as anybody in his class.
Good player, especially outside the numbers. Can make plays. He can high point balls.
Tavion Thompson's a good on both sides of the ball there. Like
Sutton.
They've got some guys.
I like Branch in the secondary.
Yeah, so if they want to open it up a little bit more, if they feel like they need to, they've got a chance there, I think, to kind of jump out on Columbus and really put some pressure on them.
Columbus is interesting, though, right? Because offensively, I like their concept, right? And they're not afraid to take advantage of where they think that you're vulnerable. We saw them go at Bellevue West on the edges. Bellevue West not really playing Kier. Ryan Rogers was hurt and really found a way to move the football on the edges. Columbus is very, very interesting in that one.
Yeah, and today – just very methodical against Papio. I'm just kind of controlling the ball, putting together some long scoring drives, especially, right out start second half. Just marched down the field, and quarterback kind of kept it, ran in himself, and then that was it, scoring for the game. They got that 17-point lead and just held on from there. Defensively, did what they needed to make life tough for the Monarchs. So I think we've got a chance for a lot of good matchups here if teams really show up to play. On the other hand, there, if these teams if we see the value of rest over rust from the teams that were sitting out this week, those are some very good teams that were sitting out. So if they come ready to play, a couple of these could get away from them early as well.
If there's one thing we've learned, I think Class A has really been haves and have-nots, right? We've seen a lot of scoring disparities. We've kind of grouped this thing into we like 1 and 1A between Westside, Bellevue West, Westside. Then there's that 3-4-5 cluster with Millard South, Elkhorn South, Lincoln Southeast. And then it appears that there's the next group. Is there anybody in the next group, let's start there, 7 through 10, that you feel is vulnerable next week?
Ooh, that's a good one. Obviously, the 8-9, that's kind of always a gene when you go there. So we'll go away from that one. That Prep Millard North game, that's really interesting. Like I said, Prep's got a tendency to let their opponents kind of, again, get those leads, and they've got a tendency to kind of struggle a little bit early on. So
and if there's a place that I think Millard North is good because of the way that they play defensively, a lot of man-to-man. Those matchups on the outside will be very, very intriguing with Rollins moving around, basically only playing one side of the ball. We'll see if that trend continues. He's played very little, no defense a week ago. You've got Bullock on the outside. But Millard North, they line up and play it. Like what you see is what you get. That one is good. That's a fantastic matchup, I think, for the way that Prep likes to play. Little counter, little play action. They try to get vertical in the passing game. And I think that's the way that Millard North would like to play it.
And that's a new one. Obviously, we've got a few rematches. We've already seen Westside Grand Island. We've seen the Millard West, Millard South battle. A couple of these other ones are rematches. So that's a new one that we'll have a chance to kind of see where both those teams are here as we progress through these playoffs.
And our last couple of minutes here, I want to go back to B. Those seedings will be set here. I think we could probably do the wild card points before we ended this podcast if we sat down and looked at it. Obviously, things change a little bit with Bennington, right? Depending on what happens with LeClaire, we'll see about Sam Scott's availability next week for Omaha Skutt. Is there anything else that's out there that you think Warren's keeping an eye on? Is Hastings, did they show you anything with the win over Grand Island Northwest and kind of bouncing back? Is there an Aurora team out there with what I would call good losses?
Yeah.
Right? I mean.
Yeah, Hastings, they're tough.
It's been a long time since I've seen them since North Star.
I was watching.
That was week 0.
Yeah. And I was watching a little bit of that before I came over here to the studio, and it was a 23-19 game, and that included 4 fumbles by Aurora there. They're by Grand Island Northwest there. So, like, it was a one possession game when you've got them playing that poorly with the ball. So that doesn't necessarily give you confidence in Hastings, but then also saw Cynic kind of take control there and put together the kind of the dagger touchdown drive at the end there when Grand Island Northwest had a chance to get the ball back. We can go win this thing. He's like, nah, I got this. Completed.
Yeah, the way Hastings is built defensively lends itself to having some problems against some physicality when they see that, right? We know they're the closest thing to playing basketball on grass for any of those teams in Class B, I think.
Yeah, and Cynic, he is really good. He's fun to watch.
He's a good player.
But like you said, you get this deep in the postseason, you're going to need a little bit more than just a really good quarterback in high school football. Knowing
what you know now, potentially with the injury situations, who's got the hot hand? Do you have any way that you're leaning? I think a week ago you asked me, I'm thinking, okay, Bennington is really starting to hit on all cylinders. I liked Norris, right? They're fairly complete. I did not like Norris in the trenches tonight unless Waverly is that good, and I couldn't get a good gauge on that.
Yeah, and that's kind of coming into this week, and I felt good about Norris, Bennington, and Skutt.
Yeah.
And that did not go well. Obviously, the injury issues for a couple of them, and Norris looking as poorly as they did. So that right now, Waverly, they did look impressive tonight. And the thing was, Cole Murray back there at quarterback, he made some really nice throws. Obviously, they're going to run
just enough, right, with those 6 or 7 passing attempts a game, right?
Well, and they that's a change they made to, like, all right, we're going to go with Cole here. He gives us a little bit more, and it's paid off for them. He had some really nice throws tonight. He had 2 touchdowns tonight. I think he had 2 touchdowns coming into the game. So if you add that element to it as well as they've run the ball, Waverly has a chance right now. I still like Skutt if they're fully healthy, but I
kind of feel like I need a shower, right? Because I feel a little dirty getting back on the Waverly train. Now, 3 weeks ago, I sat in this very office and I said, I think Waverly fooled me. I maybe miscalculated that football team. Maybe I didn't, but I haven't seen enough to the good down the stretch to let me know if okay. Was I right? Was I not right? I'm still not sure what they're going to be.
I don't know if there is an answer because you look at all these top teams, each of them have some things that you really like, but each of them have a pretty glaring weakness as well. Yeah. And it's just going to be a matter of which of these strengths outweigh those weaknesses because it's going to be tough. I really have no idea who is number 1 in that class.
Well, you make sure that you guys Get some more of this next week. It will be highly, highly entertaining. We'll run the gamut. We'll get you covered. It's Nebraska Preps postgame. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Damon Benning. Make sure you're back same time next week. We've got you covered. The whole kit and caboodle.